The emergency lights flashed red across the command center. High Admiral J stared at the holographic display, his four-fingered hands gripping the edge of the table. Another coalition world had fallen to the Void Swarm. That made 17 in the past 60 days. Status report, Jay said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides. His second-in-command, Officer Sun, stepped forward. The evacuation ships managed to save only 30% of the population. The rest. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The command center fell silent. The Void Swarm had appeared 2 years ago from the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge. At first, the Coalition thought they could handle this new threat. They were wrong. Our fleet is down to 23% strength, Sun continued. 2 more battle groups were lost defending the evacuation. Jay closed his eyes. The Coalition had united 500 species across 3,000 worlds, bringing peace for over 2 millennia. Now it was all being devoured by a mindless enemy that couldn't be reasoned with. What options do we have left? Asked Jai. The chief scientist, Gil, spoke up. None that will work, Admiral. Our weapons barely harm them. They adapt too quickly to whatever we try. Jay took a deep breath. There was one option no one had mentioned, one that no one wanted to consider. There is another possibility, he said quietly. The room grew even more silent. We could ask Earth for help. Sun's eyes widened. The Doom planet. Admiral, that's against all Coalition laws. Earth was quarantined for good reasons. I know the history, said Jai. The humans were too violent, too unpredictable. Their biology made them resistant to pain, and their psychology made them dangerously creative in combat. That's why our ancestors sealed their system away 3 centuries ago. Guild shook his head. The records from first contact are frightening. They continued fighting with injuries that would kill any of our species. They developed weapons specifically designed to cause pain and fear. And right now, Jay said firmly, we need exactly that kind of species. The military advisor, Kyung, spoke for the first time. The quarantine beacons are still active. No one has contacted Earth in 300 years. We don't know what they've become. They could be extinct. Or worse, they could have grown even more dangerous. If they're extinct, we've lost nothing by checking, Jay replied. And if they're more dangerous, he gestured to the hologram showing the advancing Void Swarm. Maybe that's exactly what we need. The Coalition Council will never approve this, Sun warned. I'm not asking them, said Jai. As military commander of the last functional battle group, I have emergency authority. I'm authorizing a stealth mission to Earth. Shocked faces stared back at him. Who would even volunteer for such a mission? Asked Gil. Going to Earth might be a death sentence. A voice spoke from the back of the room. I will go. All eyes turned to see a young diplomat standing by the door. Minji was barely 30 cycles old, young for a Coalition officer. Diplomat Minji, Jay acknowledged. This is far outside your duties. Minji stepped forward. My grandparents were from the outer colonies. They told me stories about humans that weren't in the official records. Stories that suggested they weren't just violent monsters. What kind of stories? Sun asked suspiciously. Stories about their capacity for self-sacrifice, their loyalty to their groups, their ability to solve problems that seemed impossible. Minji looked directly at Ja. We've tried everything else. What do we have to lose? Jay nodded slowly. Prepare a stealth ship. Minimal crew. Diplomatic protocols. If humans still exist, convince them we need their help. He looked around the room. If anyone objects, speak now. No one did. The silent hologram continued to pulse, showing world after world falling to the Void Swarm. Their last hope rested with the very species they had feared for centuries. Minji's small stealth ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Earth's star shone brightly ahead, a yellow dot against the black of space. She checked her sensors and frowned. That's strange, she muttered to herself. The quarantine beacons were still active, broadcasting warnings in 50 languages to stay away from the dangerous humans of Earth. But beyond them, she detected something unexpected. Activity. Lots of it. Her ship's computer counted hundreds of artificial structures orbiting multiple planets, mining operations on asteroids, energy signatures that suggested advanced technology. The humans hadn't died out or destroyed themselves as some coalition experts had predicted. They had thrived. Minji carefully guided her ship toward Earth, trying to avoid detection. The plan was to land quietly, make contact with local authorities, and alarms blared through her cockpit. A ship had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, much larger than hers, and moving impossibly fast. Within seconds, it was alongside her. A mechanical voice spoke over her communication system. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down or be destroyed." Minji quickly cut her engines. "This is Diplomat Minji of the Galactic Coalition. I come with an urgent message for Earth's leaders." There was a long silence. Then a new voice, deeper and clearly human, responded. "Coalition, you people haven't bothered with us for 3 centuries. Why now?" "Please," Minji said. "I need to speak with someone in authority. The entire galaxy is in danger." Another pause. "Prepare to be boarded." Before she could respond, a section of her ship's wall shimmered. 3 figures stepped through what appeared to be a temporary portal in her hull, technology far beyond anything the Coalition possessed. The humans wore sleek armor that seemed almost alive, shifting colors to match their surroundings. Their faces were hidden behind reflective helmets. They were taller than Minji expected, with broader shoulders and a solid presence that immediately made her cabin feel small. One of them stepped forward and removed their helmet. It was a human male with short black hair and hard eyes that seemed to see through her. "I am Commander Dai of Earth Defense," he said. "You're either very brave or very desperate to come here." Minji stood as tall as her slender frame allowed. "Both, Commander. My name is Minji, diplomat of the Coalition." Dai studied her with cold efficiency. "The Coalition that decided we were too dangerous to join Galactic society. The one that locked us in our own solar system with quarantine beacons." "Yes," Minji answered honestly. "The same Coalition that now faces extinction." This caught the commander's attention. "Explain." Minji activated a small projector from her wrist device. It showed images of the Void Swarm, dark, shifting masses that devoured everything in their path. She showed planets being consumed, Coalition fleets being overwhelmed. "They appeared 2 years ago. We've lost over 300 worlds already. Our weapons barely slow them down." Dai's expression remained neutral, but his posture changed slightly. "And you think we can help? Why?" "Because the qualities that frightened the Coalition about humans, your capacity for violence, your adaptability, your willingness to fight beyond reason, those are exactly what we need now." The commander exchanged glances with his team. One of them nodded slightly. "We've been monitoring the Void Swarm for some time," Dai finally said. "Our deep space probes detected them 5 years ago." Minji's eyes widened. "You knew, and you didn't warn us. Why would we?" Dai asked coldly. "You made it clear we weren't welcome in your peaceful galactic community." He studied the projection again, his eyes calculating. "Take us to your command center. I'll need to speak with my government, but I suspect we'll send representatives to assess the situation." As they returned to his ship, Minji caught a glimpse of Earth through a viewing port, a blue-green world wrapped in clouds and orbital structures, the home of humanity, the doomed planet, their last hope. 3 days after Minji's return, a human ship arrived at the Coalition headquarters. It was unlike anything the Coalition species had ever seen. Sleek, black, and nearly twice the size of their largest battleship, it moved with a grace that seemed impossible for its mass. The command center erupted in panic. "They've sent a warship," Officer Sun exclaimed. "This is exactly what we feared." Admiral J remained calm. "We asked for their help. Did you expect them to arrive in a pleasure craft?" The human vessel docked at the main station. Coalition security forces lined the corridors, nervous and fidgeting. When the airlock opened, only a single human stepped through. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with the easy confidence of a predator. His face was marked with a thin scar running from his right eye to his jaw. He wore a simple black uniform with no visible weapons, yet everyone could sense the danger radiating from him. "I am Han," he announced in perfect Coalition standard. "Earth has sent me to evaluate your situation." Admiral J stepped forward. "I am High Admiral J. Thank you for coming." Han nodded once. "Show me your battle records. I need to see how you fought these void creatures so far." For the next 6 hours, Han reviewed the Coalition's battles against the Void Swarm. He watched recordings of fleets being destroyed, planets being consumed, and billions dying. His expression never changed. "Your tactics are predictable," he finally said. "You fight like beings who have known peace for too long." "We are not a warrior species," Jay replied, trying to hide his offense. Han turned to face him. "None of your 500 species has the capacity for sustained conflict, do they? Your biology can't handle prolonged stress or violence." Minji, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "That's why we came to you. The records say humans evolved on a death world, that you can endure things that would break our minds." "Earth wasn't a death world," Han corrected. "It was just challenging enough to make us strong." He looked at the galactic map showing the Void Swarm's advance. "Your coalition has 3 months before your central worlds are overrun." The room fell silent. "Can you help us?" Jai asked. "Yes," Han replied simply. "But you won't like how." He placed a data device on the command table. Images appeared, human weapons, ships, and soldiers, unlike the small delegation that had arrived. "I need complete military authority," Han stated. "Your scientists will work with ours. Your ships will follow our commands. Your people will do as they're told." The coalition officers looked shocked. Sun stepped forward angrily. "You expect us to hand control of the entire coalition to humans, the species we quarantined for being too violent?" "Yes," Han said without emotion. "Because that violence is what will save you now." Admiral J studied the human. "If we refuse, then we return to Earth. We've built defenses that might protect us from the Void Swarm. You will die, but we might survive." The cold calculation in his voice chilled everyone present. Jia looked at the battle recordings, the map of lost worlds, the projections of future losses. Then he looked at Han again. "Very well," he said quietly. "You have your authority." Han nodded and activated his communication device. "This is Han. Send the Doomworlders." "Doomworlders?" Minji asked. Han's expression changed slightly, the first real emotion he had shown. It might have been pride, or perhaps anticipation. "Our elite forces," he explained. "Soldiers specifically trained for the worst scenarios. When all hope dies, you call the Doomworlders." As he spoke, alerts sounded throughout the station. More human ships were arriving, dozens of them, then hundreds, emerging from what appeared to be tiers in space itself. The humans had come in force. The main hangar of Coalition headquarters had never been so crowded. Thousands gathered to witness the arrival of the Doomworlders. Coalition species of all types stood in nervous groups, whispering among themselves. 5 massive human transport ships docked simultaneously. Their black hulls made them look like predators among the sleek silver Coalition vessels. Admiral Jai, Minji, and Officer Sun stood at the front of the welcoming committee. None of them knew what to expect. "Are you sure about this?" Sun whispered to Jai. "Giving humans control of our military." "We're out of options," Jay replied, eyes fixed on the ships. "We fight their way or we don't fight at all." The doors of all 5 transports opened at once. Human soldiers marched out in perfect formation. They wore armor unlike anything the Coalition had seen. Not bulky like traditional protection, but form-fitting and flexible. It seemed to shift colors slightly as they moved. At the front walked a woman of medium height with sharp eyes and short hair. Unlike Han's cold demeanor, she carried herself with obvious energy and purpose. A scar ran across the back of her left hand, the only visible imperfection. "Commander Jin of Earth Special Forces," she announced, stopping before Admiral Ja. "My Doomworlders are at your service." Jay bowed slightly. "We are grateful for your assistance." Jin looked around at the gathered crowd. "Don't thank me yet. You won't like our methods, but they work." She gestured to her troops. 2,000 of our best. Another 10,000 will arrive within the week." Minji stepped forward. 12,000 against the Void Swarm. We've lost millions of soldiers already." Jin smiled for the first time. It was not entirely comforting. Quality over quantity, diplomat Minji. One Doomworlder is worth 1,000 of your regular troops. Behind her, massive cargo doors opened on the human ships. Robots and humans began unloading equipment, weapons, and strange devices. "What are those?" Sun asked, pointing to sphere-shaped objects being carefully moved. "New weapons," Jin replied, "specifically designed for the Void Swarm." Ja looked surprised. "You've already developed weapons against them, but you've never fought them." Jin exchanged a look with Han, who had been standing quietly nearby. "We've been preparing for this day for a long time, Admiral. When the Coalition quarantined us, we didn't waste our time. We knew we'd face threats the Coalition couldn't handle." "You expected this?" Minji asked. "Not the Void Swarm specifically," Jin explained, "but something. The universe is vast and dangerous. Peace never lasts." She pulled up a holographic display from her wrist device. It showed detailed plans for a Coalition battleship, complete with suggested modifications. "Your ships are too fragile. Your weapons lack punch. Your battle tactics assume the enemy thinks like you do." She looked directly at Ja. "The Void Swarm doesn't think at all. It consumes. We need to make your fleet deadlier. Our ships were designed for exploration and defense, not war," Sun protested. "Then we'll redesign them," Jin stated simply. "Starting now." She turned to Minji. "The Admiral says you volunteered to go to Earth alone. That took courage. I need someone like you as our liaison." Minji stood straighter. "I'll help however I can." Jin nodded and addressed the entire group. "We start combat training immediately. First mission launches in 48 hours. "So soon?" Jai asked. "The Void Swarm won't wait," Jin replied. "And neither will we." As the Doomworlders dispersed throughout the station, Coalition personnel watched them with a mixture of fear and hope. These humans moved differently, spoke differently, even seemed to think differently than any species they had encountered. The Doom Planet had answered their call. Whether that would save them or doom them remained to be seen. Minji had never seen a battle up close before. Most Coalition species avoided direct combat whenever possible. But here she was, on the bridge of a human strike vessel, heading toward a small Void Swarm outpost. Commander Jin stood beside her, calm and focused. "Watch and learn," she told Minji. "This is how humans fight." The mission was simple: attack the outpost, gather data on the Void Swarm, and test human weapons against them. A small Coalition science team accompanied them, along with Admiral Jai, who had insisted on seeing the humans in action. "Approaching target," announced the human pilot. "Void Swarm detected on the small moon." The view screen showed a dark, shifting mass covering parts of the rocky surface. It pulsed and moved like a living thing. "Remember," Jin told her Doomworlders over the comm, "we need prisoners if possible. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and gather everything you can. Earth needs data." The response came back immediately. "Yes, Commander." 3 smaller craft launched from the main ship. Each carried 6 Doomworlders in full battle gear. Minji watched on the screen as they descended toward the moon's surface. "Shouldn't we provide cover fire?" Admiral J asked, frowning at Jin's apparent lack of concern for her troops. Jin shook her head. "They work better without it. Watch." The moment the craft landed, The Doomworlders moved with shocking speed. Their armor seemed to change color, blending with the moon's surface. They fired weapons that shot not lasers or plasma like coalition guns, but small projectiles that exploded on impact. The Void Swarm reacted immediately. Dark tendrils rose from the surface, forming shapes like giant insects or serpents. They moved toward the humans with frightening speed. "They're surrounded," Jay exclaimed. Jin didn't even blink. "No, the swarm is exactly where we want them." On the screen, the Doomworlders worked like a perfect machine. They moved in patterns that seemed random but clearly weren't. When one fired, another was moving. When one was attacked, two others were already targeting that attacker. "They're not fighting as individuals," Minji realized aloud. "They're fighting as one unit." "Exactly," Jin said with approval. "Humans are social predators. We hunt in packs." Then something happened that made both Minji and Jay gasp. One of the Doomworlders was caught by a void tendril. It pierced right through his armor and body. But instead of falling, the human grabbed the tendril, pulled himself closer to the main mass, and placed a device against it before his life signs went flat. "He sacrificed himself," Jay whispered. "He completed his mission," Jin corrected. "There's a difference." The device detonated, creating a strange pulse that made the nearby void mass shudder and recoil. The other Doomworlders immediately moved in, capturing pieces of the stunned swarm in special containers. Within 20 minutes, it was over. The void outpost was destroyed. The Doomworlders returned to the ship, carrying their dead comrade with the same care as the samples they'd collected. In the ship's lab, the science team began analyzing the samples immediately. One of the human scientists approached Jin with excitement. "Commander, the pulse weapon worked even better than expected. The void masses show a cellular breakdown when exposed to the frequency." Jin nodded. "Good. Prepare a full report for Earth." Admiral J stood in shocked silence. The battle had been unlike anything he'd ever seen. Coalition forces would have taken days to plan such an attack, would have used hundreds of troops, and would have likely failed anyway. "Now do you understand?" Jin asked him quietly. "This is why the Coalition feared us. And this is why you need us." Jay could only nod. The human's capacity for violence was terrifying. But for the first time in 2 years, he felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. 1 week after the first successful mission, the Coalition headquarters had changed completely. Human engineers worked alongside Coalition technicians all over the station. The peaceful halls now echoed with the sounds of weapons being tested and troops being trained. Minji walked beside Commander Jin through a large hangar where Coalition ships were being modified. Human workers cut into the hulls, adding new weapons and armor. "Isn't this damaging the ships?" Minji asked, watching a beautiful Coalition cruiser being fitted with what looked like metal teeth along its front edge. "We're making them stronger," Jin replied. "Your ships are too pretty. Pretty doesn't survive in war." They stopped at a testing area where Coalition soldiers attempted to use modified human weapons. Most struggled with the weight and recoil. "Your species weren't built for combat like humans were," Jin observed. "But we're adapting the weapons to work with your biology." A Coalition officer named Jian approached them, looking exhausted but excited. "Commander Jin, the new targeting systems are installed on the first battle group. They're ready for testing." Jin nodded approvingly. "Good work. Your people learn fast when properly motivated." "Fear is a powerful motivator," Minji said quietly. Jin glanced at her. "So is survival." They continued to a large command room, where Admiral J stood with Han and several other human officers. They were studying a 3D map of Coalition space, with the advancing void swarm marked in red. "The problem is that we still don't understand how they think," Jay was saying. "They don't communicate, they don't negotiate, they just consume." "They don't need to think," Han replied. "They're like a virus. Their only purpose is to spread and consume." Jin joined the conversation. which means traditional tactics won't work. We need to fight them like we would fight a disease. Find the weakness, exploit it, and burn it out. One of the human officers pointed to a section of the map. Our analysis shows a pattern in their movements. They're not random. They target worlds with the most biomass first. They're feeding. Minji watched as the humans quickly worked through different battle plans, suggesting and discarding ideas faster than coalition strategists would have in a week. Their minds seemed to work differently, quicker, more aggressive, always looking for advantages. Jin suddenly straightened. I have an idea. She manipulated the map, zooming in on a particular sector. This colony world, Tarax Prime. It's in their path and has a large population. We need to evacuate it immediately, Jay said. No, Jin countered. We need to use it. The room fell silent. Even the other humans looked surprised. Use it how? Minji asked carefully. As bait, Jin said simply. We evacuate the people that leave the infrastructure intact. Make it look occupied. When the void swarm comes to feed, we hit them with everything we have. Joe looked horrified. You want to sacrifice an entire world. To save 1,000 others, Jin replied firmly. This is war, Admiral. Sometimes you must sacrifice a piece to win the game. Han studied the plan and nodded slowly. It could work. The modified pulse weapons are ready for large-scale deployment. We just needed the right opportunity to use them. Jay shook his head. The Coalition Council will never approve this. The Council gave me military authority. Jin reminded him. This is my decision to make. Minji watched the two leaders face off. The cultural gap between humans and the Coalition had never seemed wider. Coalition species valued each world, each life. Humans seemed to think in terms of acceptable losses, yet she also understood Jin's logic. The Void Swarm had already destroyed hundreds of worlds. If sacrificing one empty planet could help defeat them, wasn't that worth it? I support the plan, Minji said suddenly, surprising herself. All eyes turned to her. Evacuate Tarax Prime, she continued. But use it to trap the Void Swarm. It's the kind of thinking we need right now. Jin gave her a small nod of respect. Very well, Jay finally agreed. We'll prepare the evacuation immediately. The human way of war had begun. The evacuation of Tarax Prime took 3 days. Millions of Coalition citizens were moved to safety, leaving behind an empty planet that still hummed with active power plants and automated systems. From orbit, it looked like a world full of life. The perfect bait. Minji stood on the bridge of the command ship, now heavily modified with human technology. The once elegant control panels were covered with additional screens and weapon systems. Admiral Jay stood beside her, watching the fleet take position behind Tarax's largest moon. 200 ships, he said quietly. The largest force we've assembled since the war began. Commander Jin entered the bridge. She wore her battle armor, ready to join the ground forces if needed. The Void Swarm will be here within 6 hours. All ships are in position and cloaked. Ground teams are hidden in the underground bunkers. Are you sure this will work? Minji asked. Jin's face was calm but serious. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. But this is our best chance. The waiting was the hardest part. Coalition species were not built for the stress of anticipation. Many of the crew showed signs of extreme anxiety, trembling hands, rapid breathing. The humans, by contrast, seemed to grow more focused as the time approached. How do you stay so calm? Minji asked Jin during the 5th hour of waiting. We're not calm, Jin replied. We're just used to fear. On Earth, our ancestors lived with fear every day. Predators, weather, other humans. There was always something trying to kill us. We evolved to use fear, not be controlled by it. Finally, the sensors lit up. The Void Swarm had arrived, a massive dark cloud that seemed to swallow the stars as it approached Tarax Prime. It's so much bigger than we expected, Jay whispered. Jin's expression didn't change. Good. More to kill. The swarm descended on the planet, dark tendrils reaching down to the surface. It began to spread across cities and forests, consuming energy and materials. Wait for it, Jin ordered as officers grew anxious. Let them commit fully to the planet. Minutes passed. The swarm covered more and more of the surface. Now, Jin commanded. All at once, 200 ships emerged from hiding. They fired not at the swarm directly, but at specific points on the planet's surface. Hidden pulse generators activated, sending waves of energy through the planet's crust. The effect was immediate. The void swarm recoiled, parts of it seeming to dissolve where the pulses were strongest. The ships moved in, firing modified weapons that tore through the weakened swarm. Ground teams, move in, Jin ordered. On the surface, human-led squads attacked vulnerable parts of the swarm, planting devices that amplified the pulse effect. The battle was chaotic and brutal. Even on the screens, Minji could see how differently humans fought compared to coalition soldiers. Where coalition troops moved with caution, humans charged forward. Where coalition soldiers retreated when wounded, humans seemed to fight even harder. We're winning, Jay said with disbelief as the swarm began to break apart. Not yet, Jin cautioned. Stay focused. The battle raged for hours. Ships were lost. Soldiers died. But the void swarm, for the first time since it appeared, was in retreat. When it was over, nearly half the human ground forces had been injured or killed. 15 coalition ships had been destroyed, but the swarm had been driven back, leaving behind pieces that scientists were already gathering for study. Admiral J stared at the battle reports in shock. We did it. We actually defeated them. Jin looked tired but satisfied. Not defeated. Not yet. But now we know they can be hurt. Across the fleet, for the first time in years, coalition crews celebrated. They had feared the humans' violence and ruthlessness, but now they understood its value. The tide was turning. 2 weeks after the victory at Turax Prime, the mood throughout coalition space had changed. News of the successful battle spread quickly, bringing hope to worlds that had been preparing for evacuation or worse. In the main war room of coalition headquarters, Admiral Jie led a meeting with representatives from 30 major worlds. Beside him stood Commander Jin and several other human officers. For the first time, we have pushed back the void swarm, Jay announced, his voice stronger than it had been in months. And now we will begin our counteroffensive. Jin stepped forward and activated a holographic display showing a map of coalition territory. We've identified 23 void swarm strongholds, she explained. Based on our analysis, these are control points that direct the smaller swarms. We'll attack them one by one, asked a coalition leader. No, Jin replied. We attack them all at once. Shocked murmurs filled the room. Impossible, someone shouted. We don't have enough ships or soldiers. We have enough, Jin stated firmly. Your coalition has been fighting defensively, spreading your forces thin. We will concentrate our strength where it matters most. Over the next hour, Jin outlined the new battle plan. It was unlike anything the coalition had ever attempted. Bold, aggressive, and dangerous. But after seeing the results at Turax Prime, no one could deny that human tactics worked. After the meeting, Minji found Jin alone in a small observation room, looking out at the stars. The plan is in motion, Minji said. The Coalition Council has approved everything. Jin nodded but didn't turn around. Good. Minji stepped closer. There's something you're not telling us, isn't there? Jin was silent for a moment. Then she sighed. We've been analyzing the void swarm since we arrived. There's a pattern to their movements, a central intelligence directing them. You mean they're not mindless? Not exactly mindless, more like parts of a larger mind. Jin turned to face Minji. We believe there's a central node, a brain for the entire swarm. If we destroy it, we might be able to stop them all at once. Minji's eyes widened. That would end the war. Yes, but there's a problem. Jin's expression darkened. The node is deep in Void Swarm territory. Any ship that approaches would be detected and destroyed long before reaching it. So, what can we do? Jin activated her wrist device, showing a schematic of a small ship unlike any Minji had seen before. Our scientists have developed a weapon that could disrupt the node permanently, but it needs to be delivered directly to the target. Minji understood immediately. A suicide mission. We call it a one-way mission, Jin corrected. But yes, whoever takes this ship won't be coming back. And you're volunteering, Minji guessed, seeing the determination in Jin's eyes. Jin nodded. I am. Why you? Send someone else. Send a drone. A drone wouldn't work. The approach needs to be adjusted constantly based on swarm movements. It requires a human pilot. Jin's voice softened slightly. And I don't ask my people to do anything I wouldn't do myself. Minji stared at the human commander. In the weeks they had worked together, she had seen Jin as hard, even cold, a perfect warrior. But now she saw something else. Beneath the soldier was a person willing to sacrifice everything for others. Is this what makes humans different? Minji asked quietly. Not just your capacity for violence, but your willingness to die for a cause. Jin smiled faintly. We're complicated, Minji, capable of terrible destruction, but also great sacrifice. That's what your coalition never understood about us. The plan was set. The counteroffensive would begin in 3 days, and somewhere in the depths of enemy territory waited the final mission, the most dangerous task of all. The day of the final assault arrived. Throughout coalition space, ships moved into position. The counteroffensive against the Void Swarm strongholds would provide cover for the most important mission, Commander Jin's attack on the central node. On the main command ship, Minji stood with Admiral J and Representative Han as they watched the battle preparations. Jin's small strike vessel was unlike any ship Minji had seen before. Sleek, black, and designed to absorb rather than reflect sensor scans. The weapon is loaded, a human technician reported. Once delivered to the node, it will disrupt the swarm's collective intelligence. They'll become disorganized, vulnerable. Jin appeared in her specialized pilot suit. She looked calm, focused, ready. The diversionary attacks will begin in 20 minutes, Admiral J told her. All 23 strongholds will be hit simultaneously. Jin nodded. That should keep them busy enough for me to slip through. Minji stepped forward. Commander Jin, She paused, not knowing what to say to someone about to embark on a one-way mission. Jin smiled, a rare genuine smile. It's been an honor working with you, Minji. You showed courage when you came to Earth. Remember that courage in the years ahead. As Jin prepared to board her ship, Han approached her. The path is mapped. Follow it exactly. You'll have a 10-second window to deploy the weapon before the swarm's defenses react. I know the plan, Jin replied. Just make sure the coalition keeps fighting after I'm gone. Han clasped her arm in a warrior's grip. Earth stands with the coalition now. We'll finish what you start. The time came. The massive coalition human fleet jumped into action, attacking Void Swarm strongholds across the galaxy. The command center erupted with activity as battle reports flooded in. The modified ships and weapons were working. The swarm was being pushed back on multiple fronts. In the chaos, Jin's small ship slipped away, heading deep into enemy territory. On the command ship, they tracked her progress as long as they could before her signal faded. Now we wait, Jay said quietly. The battles raged for hours. Coalition forces fought with a new determination, using tactics they had learned from the humans. For the first time, coalition soldiers continued fighting despite injuries and setbacks, showing a resilience they had learned from their human allies. Then something strange happened. At the battlefront near Terrax Prime, the Void Swarm suddenly hesitated. Tendrils of darkness pulled back. Movements became erratic. What's happening? Minji asked. Han studied the readings. The node. Jin must have reached it. Across all battlefronts, the swarm began behaving chaotically. Some parts attacked wildly while others retreated. The coordinated intelligence that had made them so dangerous was failing. All ships pressed the attack. Jay ordered, "The swarm is vulnerable." As the coalition forces pushed forward, a small signal appeared on the communication system. It was heavily damaged but recognizable. Jin's emergency beacon. "She's alive?" Minji asked in disbelief. "Unlikely," Han replied grimly. "The beacon activates automatically. But it means she succeeded." The signal contained a brief message. "Weapon deployed. Node destroyed. Tell Earth it was worth it." In the days that followed, the Void Swarm collapsed across Coalition space. Without central direction, the separate pieces could be isolated and destroyed. The war that had seemed hopeless just months before was suddenly winnable. 1 month later, the Coalition Council convened a special session. Admiral Jay stood before them with Minji and Han at his side. "The Void Swarm is defeated," Jay announced. "Thanks to our human allies, the Coalition will survive." The Council leader rose. "We have voted unanimously to end Earth's quarantine. Humanity has earned its place among the stars." A memorial was built at Coalition headquarters. At its center stood a simple statue of a human figure looking toward the stars. Below it, an inscription read, "When all hope dies, call the Doomworlder." The Coalition had feared humanity's capacity for violence. Now they understood it was just one part of a complex species capable of both terrible destruction and magnificent sacrifice. Earth had answered their desperate call, and the galaxy would never be the same.